Hi, folks. Welcome back to Toby Talks. I'm your host, Toby Hoy, and today we're going to dive deep into one of the most transformative methodologies that I've encountered in my career, and that's lean. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking lean. Isn't that just another corporate buzzword? And I used to think the same thing years ago. But here's the truth lean methodology has fundamentally changed how millions of organizations operate, how millions of people experience their work every day. So today we're going to explore what lean really means, where it came from, and most importantly, how you can apply it starting tomorrow morning, whether you're leading a team of 2 or 2,000. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the core principles of lean. You'll understand the 8 wastes that are probably hiding in your processes right now, and you'll have practical tools to start your lean journey. So let's get started. To understand lean, we need to go back to post-World War II Japan. Toyota was struggling. They didn't have the resources that American manufacturers had. They couldn't afford massive inventories, and they couldn't waste materials. They had to be smarter, not just bigger. So enter Taiichi Ohno and Shigeru Shigo, the architects of what would become the Toyota production system. These two brilliant minds asked a radical question. What would happen if we stopped thinking about maximizing efficiency and started thinking about eliminating waste? That shift in perspective changed everything. You see, traditional manufacturing wisdom said that you should keep your machines running at all times to build up inventory as a buffer and to push products through the system. But Ono and Shiego observed that this created an enormous waste. Inventory was just sitting around in warehouses. Defective products were discovered too late, and workers were waiting around for parts. Overproduction led to obsolescence. So they developed a system based on 2 core concepts, just-in-time production and jidoka, which means building in quality at every step. Instead of pushing products through the system, they created pull systems where each step only produces what the next step needs when they need it. The results were staggering. Toyota became one of the most successful manufacturers in the world. And here's what's beautiful. These principles aren't limited to just manufacturing. They apply to everything: healthcare, software development, marketing, customer service, you name it. In the 1990s, researchers James Womack and Daniel Jones studied Toyota's system and coined the term lean in their groundbreaking book, The Machine That Changed the World. They distilled these principles into a framework that anyone could use. And that brings us to today, where lean has evolved into a complete philosophy of continuous improvement. The lean methodology relies on 5 fundamental principles, and we'll walk through each one by one. And I want you to think about your own work as we go. And the first principle is to define value from the customer's perspective. Now, it sounds obvious, but it's revolutionary in practice. Value is not what you think is important. It's what your customer is willing to pay for. Everything else, that's waste. I once worked with a software company years ago that spent months building in features that they thought were amazing. The code was beautiful, elegant with design, but customers didn't use them. They weren't solving real problems, and that team had to completely reorient to around actual customer needs, not what their assumptions were about what their customers wanted. So ask yourself, do you really know what your customers value? Have you asked them recently? Second principle is to map the value stream. This is where it gets tactical. A value stream map shows every single step in the process, everything from the initial request to final delivery. And I mean every step. The handoffs, the approvals, the waiting, the rework. When you map it out visually, waste becomes obvious. You see the work that sits idle. You see redundant steps. You see where information gets lost in translation. I recommend doing this exercise with the entire team. Get a whiteboard or a large piece of paper and map out how work actually flows, not how you think it flows or not how it's supposed to flow. You'll be amazed at what you discover. The third principle is to create flow. Once you've defined and identified the waste, you can eliminate it through smooth, continuous flow. Work should move steadily from one value adding step to the next without interruption, delay, or backflow. Think of this as a river versus a series of dams and reservoirs. Flow is the river. In traditional processes, we create dams everywhere. There's approval queues and batch processing and departmental handoffs. Each stop on the flow creates waste. Creating flow means removing these obstacles. It means cross-training employees so that work doesn't wait around for one specialist. It means reducing batch sizes so that work moves faster. It means questioning every handoff and approval process. Principle 4 is to establish pull. This is counterintuitive for many, many leaders. We're trained to push products through market, to push through our teams, to push, push, push. Pull systems work differently. Work is only initiated when there's an actual need for it. Your downstream process pulls from upstream. This prevents overproduction and ensures that you are always working on what's actually needed. In knowledge work, this might be limiting work in progress. Your team doesn't start new products until the current ones are complete. This creates a natural pull and prevents the chaos of juggling too many initiatives. The fifth principle is to pursue perfection through continuous improvement. And here's the beautiful truth about lean. You're never done. And that's not frustrating. It's liberating. You're always learning, always improving, and always evolving. That is at the heart of Kaizen, the practice of continuous improvement. Small, incremental changes compound over time into massive transformation. You don't need to overhaul everything tomorrow. You just need to improve something today and then something tomorrow and again the next day. The Japanese have a saying for this, that today is better than yesterday and tomorrow is better than today. That's the mindset. So we'll go into the eight wastes, and then we'll talk about waste. Ono originally identified 7 types of waste, and then later practitioners added the 8th. As we go through these, I want you to listen for the wastes that are hiding in your own processes. So waste number 1 is transportation. This is the unnecessary movement of products, materials, or information. Every time you move something, you risk damage, loss, or delay, and you're not adding value. In knowledge work, this might be excessive email chains, or moving documents between multiple redundant systems, or information passing through unnecessary intermediaries. Waste number 2 is inventory. Excess inventory ties up both capital and space. It also hides problems. In manufacturing, it's literal inventory. In knowledge work, it's work in progress, unfinished projects, backlogs of requests, or half-written reports. Every piece of work you started but hasn't finished is inventory. And it's costing you in context switching, in mental overhead, and delayed value delivery. Waste number 3 is motion. This is the unnecessary movement of people walking to get supplies, reaching for tools, or searching for information. In an office, it's searching through emails for that one single attachment, or clicking through 5 systems to find data, or attending meetings that you are not needed for. I worked with a team that calculated that they spent 40% of their time searching for information across disconnected systems. 40%! That is pure motion waste. Waste number 4 is waiting. Things like idle time or work sitting in queues, people waiting for approvals, information, decisions, or resources. This is often the biggest waste in knowledge work. How many times have you been ready to work on something, but you're waiting for somebody else? That is waiting waste. Every approval bottleneck, every dependency, every time work sits idle, value is not being creative. The value is not being created. Waste 5 is overproduction, making more than what is needed sooner than it's needed. This often is driven by efficiency thinking. We batch work because it feels efficient, but it creates inventory. And it often means that you're producing things that won't be needed or will become obsolete. In knowledge work, this is creating documentation that no one reads, building features that no one requested, writing reports that are left unread, or attending meetings that produce no action. Waste number 6 is overprocessing, doing more work than the customer values, gold plating, excessive quality beyond what is required, or using complex processes when simple ones would work. I see this constantly with presentations and slide decks. People spend hours making their slides perfect when a simple sketch would communicate just as well, if not better, or reports with extensive formatting in them when the context is what matters. Ask yourself, is this step necessary? Does it add value for the customer? Or are we doing it simply because that's how we've always done it? Waste number 7 is defects, errors, rework, scrap, incorrect information. Every defect requires time and resources to fix. But more importantly, defects that reach your customer damage trust and reputation. Lean thinking says to build the quality in, not to inspect the quality in. Prevent defects at the source rather than catching them later in the process. In knowledge work, this might be miscommunication that requires rework, incorrect data that leads to bad decisions, or bugs in software, errors in reports. Waste number 8 is unutilized talent. This is the waste of not fully engaging on your people's skills, knowledge, and creativity. It's the most tragic waste because it affects human potential. When you don't listen to routine frontline workers who see the processes daily, that is unutilized talent. When you micromanage instead of empowering, that is unutilized talent. When you don't provide growth opportunities, that is unutilized talent. You want people to contribute, and they want to contribute. They want to improve things. Lean organizations tap into that. So, how do you actually start implementing lean? Let me give you a practical roadmap. Step number 1 is to start with a Gemba walk. Gemba is a Japanese word meaning the real place. In lean, it means going to where the work actually happens, not to a conference room. The place where the value is created. Walk that process. Watch the workflow. Talk to the people doing the work. Don't judge, just observe and ask questions. What problems do they face? Where do they see the waste? What suggestions do they have? This builds understanding and trust. You can't improve what you don't understand. Step number 2 is to pick one process to improve. Don't try to transform your entire organization overnight. Pick one process that's painful, visible, and improvable. Maybe it's your onboarding process, or maybe it's how you handle customer special requests. Maybe it's weekly reporting, whatever it is. Step number 3 is to map that current state. Gather your team together and map exactly how the process works today. Every step, every handoff, every decision point, capture cycle time, wait time, and defect rates. Now be honest. This isn't about blame. It's about understanding reality. Step number 4 is to identify waste. Go through your map and mark the 8 wastes. Where is the waiting? Where is the overprocessing? Where's the rework? You'll find waste everywhere. Now that's okay. That's why we're doing this. Step 5 is to build the future state. Now ask, how could this process work if we eliminated the waste? What would it look like? What's the minimum viable process that delivers value? Be ambitious, but be realistic. You want improvement, not perfection. Step 6 is to experiment and learn. Implement changes in small little experiments. Try something for 2 weeks and measure results, and then learn, adjust, and try again. This is PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act. And that is the engine of continuous improvement. Step number 7 is to standardize and sustain. When something works, standardize it, document it, and train people on it. But remember that standardization in lean isn't rigidity. It's creating a baseline for future improvement. So here's what I want you to remember. Lean is not about doing more with less. It's not about squeezing more productivity out of exhausted people. It's about respecting people by eliminating the frustrations and the waste that prevent them from doing their best work. When you eliminate waste, magical things happen. Work becomes more satisfying, quality improves, customers are happier, and yes, you become more efficient. Not, but it's a byproduct of doing the right work the right way. So start small. Pick one thing that you can improve this week. Maybe it's eliminating one unnecessary meeting. Maybe it's streamlining one approval process. Maybe it's asking your team what frustrates them the most. Lean is a journey, not a destination. And every journey begins with a single step. As always, thanks for listening to Toby Talks. And if you found this valuable, please share it with a colleague who might benefit from it. And I'd love to hear about your lean experiments. Connect with me on LinkedIn or let me know what you're working on in the comments down below. Until next time, keep learning, keep improving, and keep leading with purpose.